A few months ago, we flew from Liverpool to Reykjavik and hired a camper van for 5 days to get a flavour of Iceland and for me to get a better understanding of the country's volcanicity. It's far from being adventurous, although unremarkable for travellers, the landscape is still pretty wild. There's no shortage of camper hire outlets, but the prices can be wild. In September, our van cost over €900 for less than a week, and that was basic, and on top of that was the flight. It was a van with little insulation and a little camping stove. For a vehicle similar to mine, with its facilities, the prices are between €1,500 and €2,000 a week. In high summer, it is €2,000 to €3,000 a week. And to experience Iceland, you need at least 2 weeks. Now, I didn't even consider taking my own vehicle to Iceland prior to seeing Dutch and German plate campers. A flurry of them on the ring road suggested a ferry had landed, so I investigated further. The Smyril line departs from the northern tip of Denmark in Shetland. So my first challenge is an 800-mile road trip after a channel crossing. Except my first challenge was getting the van to start. I had decided to get a duplicate key for the van at Simpson's, the key cutter back in Britain, who managed to corrupt my only key during the cleaning process, requiring me to get a wonderful AA locksmith to save the day. Now, I'm not a member, and they came out within 4 hours to replace the key for £160. Now, Europeans may find it workaday to jump on a ferry from Denmark to Iceland, but the need to stick to a schedule fills me with horror. So I gave myself plenty of time, 3.5 days, to journey up from Dunkirk to Hirtshals, which was good, as most of the M25 towards Dover was being dug up for roadworks. En route, I had planned to buy a month's worth of wine in France, given the booze prices in Iceland are outrageous, bordering on criminal. But we arrived on the 1st of May, which is a French Labour Day, and every shop is shut. Belgian supermarkets were also shut, requiring me to shop in Germany for a limited range of more expensive red wines, although the quality lager is only 55 cents a can. Driving up through Europe is fairly straightforward, and all dual carriageways or motorways. The only confusing spot being the Antwerp ring road that seems to be permanently being rebuilt. We were caught out 2 years ago going up to Norway at Antwerp. A 400-mile schedule a day is not particularly arduous, it's just a bit boring. So 200 miles up the motorway is the pretty Dutch town of Zwolle and a proper break. Motorway fuel prices in the Netherlands and Germany are high, but not as outrageous as the UK service station costs. 800 miles is 2 tanks, so the first refill was in Dunkirk, with slightly lower prices for diesel than the UK. The next would be on the German-Danish border. While camping spots are non-existent in the Netherlands, but there are plenty of pleasant rest areas with no time limit or parking fees, unlike UK service areas. So this is our camp up for the night in the morning. And they're everywhere, these truck stops. Unlike Britain, and you don't pay any money to stay overnight.
we're in Denmark!
Denmark is of course part of the Schengen, but the UK is no longer part of the EU, so we had our passports checked. You must have 3 months left on your passport when you leave. Given we are allowed 3 months visa stay, then having 6 months left on your passport before it expires is a must. Making good time, we pulled off the motorway and found this picnic spot. There is actually an overnight camper van spot under the trees, for which I was informed of in Danish by a local who was rather frustrated I hadn't parked on the grass. With good time, and only another 100 miles or so to the port, we visited the pretty port town of Aalborg, an ideal location for Wes Anderson to make a quirky movie about a Danish pastry chef, perhaps, and a chance to enjoy the main mini heatwave after a damp and cloudy spring.
What's that on the windscreen?
Oh dear.
What does it say?
It appears to be a misdemeanour.
For what?
Parking too close to the junction?
Bollocks.
Hirtshals is the main port for ferries to Norway, and the Smyril line, that seems to be the only car ferry to serve Iceland and the Faroe Islands. It's also notable for its golden stands that stretch the length of Denmark, and there's Nazi bunkers. There are lots. The Atlantic Wall here defended the mouth to the Baltic, but it was also to deter an Allied invasion. The beaches are perfect for a D-Day, and Denmark ideal to advance into Germany. But any plans were rejected, as the Navy did not have enough air power via aircraft carriers for air superiority over the landing beaches. And Scotland is just too far away for fighter cover by the RAF. There are plenty of spots to park for free in the town if you arrive early. There's also the added treat of a geology museum next to the lighthouse where erratics, those boulders, dumped in Denmark on its sandy soils from far-off lands north during the glaciation. After checking in to the ferry, we all get a chance for an hour to experience camper van envy. And of course, there will be someone with an armed personnel recreation vehicle that can withstand the zombie apocalypse. I do wonder how many of those will be going truly off-road. Using the Smyril line website to book is not particularly user-friendly. It's in English, and you can web chat with a real person who speaks English for help. However, the site only offers bookings for cars. There's no drop-down menu for campers and trucks. But cars means every form of transport, so just follow the instructions and measure your vehicle for height and length. Likewise, booking a cabin is not entirely clear. So the cost of the truck, which is 7 metres long and over 3 metres high, worked out at €800 each way. About a week's camper van hire in Iceland. Smaller vehicles are obviously cheaper, and motorbikes are very cheap. Prices are higher over the height of summer, and prices increase the later you book them. So I booked 4 months earlier, and just leaving it a week to make a decision caused the prices to increase €200 for exactly the same crossings. The passenger cost is €112 each way. The variable cost is which cabin you want to book. There are bunks below decks, below the waterline, which are the cheapest for 3 nights. And it's right up to the luxury cabins with a view. Our 3-bunk cabin with a window was €195 each way, and it came with a fridge and 220-volt power supply, so bring adapters. The bedding's good quality, and they provide duvets, but only 1 pillow, so bring a pillow. Day 1. Robinson Crusoe's diary. We've managed to fashion a rudimentary bookshelf. The North Sea was exceptionally flat for our journey, and it was very pleasant. So the real disadvantage is food and drinks on board are very expensive. Although there is a choice of restaurants from burger and chips to the luxury. You can purchase in advance a meal ticket, which is 3 meals a day, over the voyage for about €100. However, only includes the set buffet, not the other items on the cafe menu. It has 0 vegan or vegetarian choices, apart from the salad, and the breakfast is continental, with a boiled egg, and it looks all a bit kind of school dinner-like. For vegetarians and even vegans, the margarita pizza for £15 is available. It has vegan cheese, vegan because it's that cheap imitation mozzarella. Or you can go for the burger and chips, which is roughly the same price. So, being prepared, we brought pot noodles, instant soup and porridge. However, despite the belief there would be a kettle, there was none. There is a coffee maker, and it's only available in the deluxe cabin. From a British perspective, no kettle is an abuse of one's human rights. You can buy rather weak real coffee in a cafe, or a tea bag and hot water for about €3. Or alternatively, you can just buy hot water for around €1. So bring a flask and no one notices how much water you take. Proper coffees at about €5 or €6 are available in the top cafe bar. We're about a quarter of the way, third of the way through, just coming up towards Shetland, and in the middle of the North Sea in the Viking sector, and it's glorious sunshine and no wind. This voyage is the closest I will ever get to a cruise, unless I got dementia, and chilling out for 3 nights and 2.5 days is surprisingly pleasant. I'm sure I'd say otherwise in a shared bunk cabin with no window and snoring Germans, so treat yourself to the best cabin you can afford. Ours came with satellite TV. The only English channels are Sky News and Al Jazeera. However, Danish TV has a lot of British drama, most of it about 10 years old, in English with subtitles in Danish. The first land we sight is the northern tip of the Shetlands. It's such a pity the ship doesn't call into a UK port like Aberdeen. Iceland, Norway and Denmark are Scotland's closest neighbours, yet there's no direct connection. Here on the very northern tip of Shetland is an excellent point to check one's emails, as full mobile connectivity and high broadband speed was available for a couple of hours as we passed. Tesco Mobile was offering 20 megabytes a second, and this is on the most northerly tip of the Shetlands. Ship broadband is available, but again at considerable cost. It was along here that I saw my first swallow. Just the one, so I'm not sure where it's headed, along with a thrush who seemed to be avoiding a female kestrel. Surprisingly, kestrels are summer visitors to the Faroe Islands and Iceland. The first port of call is the Faroe Isles. and you can disembark for a week or more and catch the next ferry to Iceland. However, as an unexpected treat, there's a 4-hour stopover in Tórshavn. The unexpected disappointment is that the boutiques and shops appear to only be open on Wednesdays to Fridays. The voyage becomes almost cruise-like as we continue the journey between the numerous islands of the Faroes. The orographic effect is where warmer land and condensation of clouds, as well as reduced pressure as the air travels over the islands, causes clouds and mist. But once we leave the Faroe Isles, we leave the clouds that seem to love the land and head into a very beautiful sunset. Early morning, we are greeted with the spectacular coastline of eastern Iceland. And the port of Seyðisfjörður. And there is customs, where UK passports are checked and they ask where you entered the Schengen. Part of the stress of such a big adventure is being turned away either before embarking on the ferry or on arriving. And this is a risk, as I noticed several vehicles with non-EU plates being held up in customs. One had a UK plate, its fortunes unknown. It's literally the lack of familiarity with ferries to Iceland that makes the journey such an adventure, despite the ferry crossing being very civilized. It's not like exploring the deepest wilds of Siberia or Alaska, but driving to Iceland is fairly rare for UK travellers. I counted 3 other UK plates on the crossing. And that's the nature of adventure. There's not a universal metric, personal bravery and zeal. It's personal, getting out of one comfort zone. An observation of my fellow travellers was that all of them seemed to be adventurous and heading out on a trip of a lifetime to explore the true wilderness of Iceland. And I discovered that if you got the time, it's not that stressful and it's really very pleasant.